I was told to tell you the story of Alexander Press, which is a company that has been created 35, 37 years now, long time ago, after, of course, my arrival into Canada in 1977. And before I will introduce you the goal and the purpose of the company and tell you exactly what we're doing today, it's good thing to refer to a little bit of the history, to tell you a little bit about my family and my origins from Greece. As perhaps some of you know, I was born and raised in Greece in the city of Thessaloniki, which is the second capital of the Byzantine Empire after Constantinople. There in Thessaloniki, I finished my primary and secondary school, and I had the opportunity to meet a lot of people in Thessaloniki associated with Mount Athos, first of all, associated with the church, with the Orthodox Church. And then I decided, when I finished the high school, to continue my studies in Thessaloniki in the Polytechnic School at the School of Engineering of Thessaloniki. But at the same time, I had a lot of other interests except the engineering. And so I was able to follow another degree in Thessaloniki on Byzantine music, and then also another, possibility of after I finished my engineering school to study also Orthodox theology. But I was very interested when they asked me to talk about Alexander Press, to give an account of from where I'm coming from. In other words, my family. And many times I make reference to the beautiful story of my father. And I will tell you in brief that kind of history, because somehow it's related to the present history of Alexander Press. My father used to be a very well-known and famous soccer player in Greece. And he was a person that was not indifferent almost to the church in his youth. And during the very difficult times before the Second War, he went to the army as normally to do his service in the army. And because of the different wars and the different circumstances, then he continued to stay in the army for more than the usual time. Then, at the time of the Second World War, was an officer of the Greek army, and he had as a responsibility to send people to North Africa with the Allies. So, in that kind of capacity, he was taken by the Germans and put it into prison. And in the prison, he spent almost 1 year, and 3 times he avoided to be in front of the squad to be killed because of a double identity. He had 2 identities, and one was with the name Hadjnicolaou, and the other was with the name Hadjidakis. So one was the civil, almost identity, the other was the military. And the Germans did not have never been certain if they caught the right person. And 3 times in front of the squad, they brought him back. In other words, he escaped the final, the position from the Germans because of this double identity and the mixer that the Germans did to his name. But before the 3rd time in the prison, the officer there, or the guard there of the prison, the German, I told him that tomorrow you're about to be executed. That's probably your last day on earth. now you lost this life, perhaps I can give you something to read about the next life. And he gave him the Bible to read. So my father read the Bible with the light of the prison light there, the day before they brought him to the execution in front of the squad again. And fortunately for him, for the third time, because they were not certain if that was his identity or not, they brought him back into the prison. He found the opportunity to escape from the German occupation in the Second War and went to the mountains to have a certain cover. And because of the revelation of the truth that he learned in the prison during that night, then he decides, although it was during the war, to come down to Thessaloniki from time to time and register at the theology department in Thessaloniki, and then with a lot of eager and to learn about Orthodox theology during the German years in Greece. At the end of the war, when the end of the war finished with the Germans, then started the civil war in Greece, which took almost another 4 or 5 years. And my father still remained as an officer to the Greek army until the liberation. And then he decided to use his degree that he already obtained from the University of Thessaloniki in theology and become a teacher of theology. And by mistake, although the Ministry of Education was very favorable to the heroes of the war, he wanted to reward him, and instead he asked him if he wants to go to any particular place to teach theology. And by mistake, he thought that he told them to not go into the city from where he came from, because everybody knew him as a soccer player. And by mistake, they sent it to that city. So the ancient soccer player and athlete and so on of the city now came back after the war as a theologian with an incredible spirit, which he has been transmitted to all of us in our family, all 5 kids. With that as an inheritance, when I finished my engineering school and my studies in theology also in Thessaloniki and my studies in music, then I decided to go to America or Canada for graduate studies. So the decision was made to me in 1977. I decided, after consulting with Father Paisios, the famous Saint Paisios of today, to take my visa to come to Canada. And at that time, I asked my father if I had his permission to continue my studies. My father was very much in favor of studies in general, and was very progressive personality, but because of big family and big expenses, we didn't have the means to give me money or to give me any kind of support financially. So I was obliged to take the opportunity from 3 friends in Thessaloniki to ask them for money to give me so I can buy a one-way ticket and come to Canada. At that time, I was accepted both in Toronto, in Montreal, and in Vancouver, and my decision was to take my visa into Montreal and become a student at McGill University, because I was speaking better French at that time, because my mother was professor of French. So, as the decision was made, I took the summer of 77 to arrive early in Montreal, Canada, to prepare myself for my studies in September and to learn a little bit more English at that time. So I make a decision. I took a plane a ticket, and I arrived very late in Montreal one night in the summer. I didn't know anybody in Montreal. I didn't have any kind of contact, and I didn't know where to go, how I was supposed to be received, and so on. And I was waiting at the airport at that time at the Mirabel, waiting for something to happen, I will say, without an anxiety, but with a certain certainty that something will happen. Then I heard on the microphones that they are calling my name. And I approached, the counter there, and then I met somebody by the name of Iason. In Greek, the name is Iasonas. In English, the name is Jason. So I never met him before. He introduced himself, and he says, "I am Jason, and I came to pick you up." I didn't know who he was. I didn't know who sent him, but I followed him. We went to his car, and we went to his family, who was living at that time in Laval. I met his family, his wife, his kids, and his relatives who are living next door. And then we had a big reception the first night, and we had the first discussion. I never asked them during that meal from where did they learn about my arrival, or if they know me from some place, or if there is any kind of connection. Took me some time until I will realize much later on a connection of my mother with a friend of hers who had a cousin who had etc. Somebody new in Montreal, and they make some calls, and they ask this kind of person if it's possible to go into the airport and pick me up. And myself, I felt very grateful because of that, because of meeting Mr. Jason. And the only thing that I asked him, if it was Saturday evening, if tomorrow being Sunday, if they will go to any kind of church. They told me that they normally go to a church in Laval, but for me, they will decided to go all together to the cathedral in St. George, which is in the downtown Montreal. So from then on, we became friends. They gave me all what I was needed the first number of weeks. I stayed in their house. I became friends with their kids. And then a few months later, Mr. Jason suddenly, out of the blue, died one morning. They found him in his car in the parking lot. I was very sad, but that inspires me to write and reflect about our short encounter with Mr. Jason. And I was able a little bit later on to write a small history and in reference to what reminds me Mr. Jason was the name Jason, and I connected that name Jason with the understanding that I have that when St. Paul came into Thessaloniki to preach, then she was admitted in the house of Jason. And he spent a number of days there in the house of Jason in Thessaloniki, and then he spoke to the synagogue in Thessaloniki. So I'm connecting the two with a common name of Jason, and once again in my life, I realized that there is no coincidence. There is a providence of God that, He is on top of me and regulates things that we cannot easily regulate ourselves. In the same year, a few months after my arrival in Montreal, I went to ask for some sort of work to complement my very small amount of money that the university was giving me. And then some people asked me to go and ask if there is any kind of position as a teacher in the Greek schools. There, I went into the office of the director of the schools, and I asked for if there are a possibility for me to teach Greek into the Greek kids. The director told me that unfortunately the time is over for this year, and all the places have been filled. And if I want it, I can leave my CV and leave my name and my telephone. If they need of something, then they will let me know. But before I left his office, the old director of the schools, he asked me my name. And by my name, he asked me if I knew somebody by the name Aristides Hadjnicolaou, who was my father. When I told him that was my father, then immediately he changed his mind, and he gave me 3 classes in the same year to start with in the Greek schools. And then that was my starting point on my career at the Greek schools, would continue for another 20 years from then on. In the beginning as a teacher, and then as a director of different schools, and then on. Another second brilliant explanation of there is no luck in this world, there is no coincidence, but there is a providence that takes care of things. So I continued my studies there at McGill, and I finished my master's. When I finished my master's, I went to Greece for summer holidays, and then through a particular law that passed on that particular time, I was able to pay for the Greek army, and then decided to come back into Montreal and continue my doctoral studies. My doctoral studies, I did it also at McGill. And when I finished my PhD in 1983. In 1983, when I finished my doctoral degree, 2 things happened at the same time. First, my old professor at McGill retired, and then the university decides to give me his position. So even before I finished my PhD, I was named as a professor then at McGill. And then my second thing that happened the same year, as an obligation, as a responsibility to myself, I decided to go to the Greek community and ask the president to give me the permission to open a new department at the Greek community. And that department was the Montreal Center for Greek Studies. As my contribution to the education of the second, third, fourth, fifth generation Greeks of Montreal. That kind of center has been established in 1987, and then still is going on. This year is the 41st year that continuously gives courses in Greek languages, in Greek philosophy, in Greek history, in Orthodox faith, and so on, for people that are 18 years and older. And that center became a permanent fixture of the Greek community today, and many people learn or relearn the Greek language and everything else associated with Greek letters and literature through this center. At the same time, through this center came another new development. People are asking for reference books and for reference material of the different courses, of the different interests that they have. And then I realized that it's not really so easy to lend books to people, but it's better to start creating an opportunity for them to have access to this, the general market of the books and of the references in Greek, in English, in French, or in any other language. And that gave birth to the first kind of ideas behind Alexander Press. Alexander Press in the beginning was named Alexander in English and French, and the name was taken from the Alexander the Great, who comes, of course, from my city, from Thessaloniki, and was from my youth even as a hero of history that during his time, 300 years before Christ, he went from the Greece almost to India and civilized the entire world. That kind of mission, I felt that it was necessary to find a brother, a sister company in Montreal at that time. And then we created the company Alexander as a distribution company of books to start with a very few and small collection in the beginning, especially for reference books. But this, in 1987, started very, very slowly and without any kind of big ambition. But as the time passes and as we see now, the growth was unbelievable, and from a very small and insignificant company at that time became what it is today, one of the biggest distribution and publishing companies of Orthodox material, of Greek material in North America. Of course, this kind of expansion, I will say, and development then gave us the opportunity a number of years later to create a sister company, which is Alexander Press, which is a publishing company, with the effort and the mission to disseminate the information around Orthodox theology, Orthodox tradition, iconography, Mount Athos, Greek letters, Greek poetry, Greek civilization to the entire North American continent. Today, Alexander has his own printing house, has his own huge warehouse. We have a selection of close to 3,000 books. We have a big catalog and a smaller catalog. People have access through the internet, the web page, to find us and ask us for information or ask us for a particular reference for a particular book. And we're very proud to accomplish that mission today. The mission still remains the same as its concept from the first time. And the mission was to present what we call the inner Romniosini. Romniosini is a much more beautiful work instead of Greekness. Why? Because it incorporates in the understanding of Romniosini, in other words, what is Romnios, which means what is the old Romans, which became Byzantines, and incorporates into that tradition all the beautiful elements from the ancient Greek philosophy to the Byzantine civilization into the modern times. And to that extent, we are feeling responsible to present that kind of knowledge through a particular way, through translation of texts from Greek into English and French, and the other way around, and a dissemination of all the information to the entire world. And that mission hopefully continues and will continue as we call it.